Live and direct, we come and never pre-recorded with information that will never be reported. Disregard the mainstream, media distorted. We come and listen and support it.
Hey, what's up, beautiful people? This is Zach Sweat with Eternal Strength. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio, and please be sure to check back each week as new episodes will be released. From Wonder, we have Dave Herz and Willow Rubin. They are the founders of Wonder, and you guys are stretched out across 7 cities, correct?
Yes.
You got Atlanta, Chicago, Colorado, Dallas, New York, Orange County, San Francisco.
That is correct. And then we also have what's called Wonderland, which is where we work with families not in those places virtually.
Okay, that's awesome. And is that new?
That is fairly new. Well, pandemic new,
Pandemic new. That's a thing now. That's what
grew out of the pandemic.
It's kind of like pandemic new.
Mm-hmm.
Rock and roll. And
Hold on. Was Texas in there?
Dallas.
Okay, cool. And that's one of the newer regions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Just wanted
Wes,
to
you know that. Come on, you're a Team Wonder fan. You're a super fan. 99.
This is a really good hat, man.
It is a good hat. The beanie you guys gave us, all that merch is really nice. You have good stuff.
Willow doesn't mess around.
Yeah, Dave, put on that new corduroy one. It's really cool. I just don't have it on. It's like that old school 70s corduroy.
Got a Wonder t-shirt.
Look at this.
There you go, Dave.
Dude. It's a super dad hat.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It really is. I like the dad hat style. That was always my style, but I don't wear it.
Yeah.
But okay, and this is again from the website. Your approach is rooted in 3 main facets. You guys focus on family systems, framework, relationship dynamics, and then activity-based support, which is really, really cool. And then a little bit of y'all's history. Y'all linked up. Dave, you started as a high school teacher.
That is correct.
Kind of start of your journey. And then from there, you went to one of the first residential transition programs, AIM House in Boulder, Colorado in 98. And you stayed there for a couple of years. And then you started your own thing, a Confident Living company in the year 2000. And your whole mission there was to support teens and young adults in the real world, excuse me, because you believed a lot of the healing and therapy actually happens outside of therapy. And your whole ethos was, we show up. So if anything outside of a session, you would show up. And that's kind of y'all's model now, without getting too much into detail, because this is still your intro, which is pretty spot on, right?
Yeah, you want to see my old sign?
Yes.
Because it really, I want to see, it shows my old tagline.
Nice.
All right.
Right, and there's the mentor, right? Showing.
Yeah, showing up.
It's good. You guys have updated the stuff since then, but
yeah, you don't like that artwork? It is a little okay.
Was I ripping it a little bit? I'm like, yeah, you guys have nice updated merchandise now.
Oh yeah, that's 23 years ago.
Yeah, and then that eventually turned into Vive, and then Willow. That's when you kind of joined up with Dave around like 2005. Is that correct? You guys started linking up.
Willow's like, yeah, I guess it was 2005. I can't remember.
It was kind of a grayer. It's like 2005, 2007. You guys linked up at Vive. Y'all did that for quite some time, and you guys exited that. It was bought out. You guys kind of made your way kind of at the same time out of that, but it had grown into 9 different cities before you guys left. So you guys were pretty spread out there, pretty big company. And then you left and you went to Key Transitions in LA, and you said, I got to go do my own thing again. No beef with Key Transitions, but you're like that. You said the pull was too strong for you to start your own thing again. So you started your own thing in 2018, which is now Wonder. And then you got Willow Rubin, who is a clinical director guru, from what I know. You are a LPC and an LMFT, and you got your start in 1999 at BCMH, which is Boulder County Mental Health, correct? Boom. And you did that for a while, and then you joined Vive in 2005. supporting their team, and now you were clinical director at now Wonder, which you guys run together. There, that's all I got.
Wait a minute, I gotta add to Willow's. Willow also trained at one of the most eclectic and multifaceted universities, which is Naropa University in Colorado. And they're still pretty progressive in terms of their study and what they offer.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Wes.
Yep.
So you guys are certified gangsters in the mental health field. You guys have been around for a while. And
You get the gangster check from Eternal Strength.
you got the check. And that's where you guys met Wes, because you guys were his first kind of teachers in that realm, in that industry, because you guys hired Wes at Vive. I don't know what year that was in.
I think it was 2010. Actually, I know, because in fact we were moving and I just found my offer letter and all of the original onboarding paperwork from when I got hired on with Vive. And Allison was like, do you need any of this stuff? And I was like, yes, I'm saving all of that. So I think it was 2010. And I was doing my internship at Peachford Hospital, just rounding out with my master's. And I flew. Well, first I did a call with Willow and Rohini interview, who's no longer there, but she now does online stuff with her husband called Rewilders. Is there, shout out to them. Yeah. We'll put up their info. Interviewed, and then I flew out to Colorado and walked all down Boulder, and Dave stopped and got a cookie and showed me a vinyl shop, and we talked for a little bit, and then the journey began, and I had 6-7 beautiful years with Vive and under the supervision of Willow as my clinical director. Dave is the boss man. And I was telling Zach earlier before we even started, he was like, man, I want to highlight how impactful and influential they were on your growth as a clinician and a mental health therapist. And you guys, I want to say this, Eternal Strength wouldn't exist without either one of y'all. Like, I go back and put the puzzle pieces together of how Eternal Strength came into birth and grew. And it's like, without that journey, I have no idea where I'd be right now. And that was the seeds that were planted, my own belief in myself as a clinician, in seeing relational work, in having you guys shape this arena of what true humanistic person-centered work was. I have you guys to thank for being my first original mentors in showing me holistic care and therapeutic care and how it should be done, and being able to show up.
Wes.
Thank you, Wes.
Man. I do remember when you showed up in Boulder too. I don't remember getting a cookie, but I'm glad that I did that and took you to Bart's. It must have been Bart's. So I'm glad I took you to Bart's vinyl shop. Sure. And I do remember because you had just the beginnings, just some outlines of tattoos on your arms. And that was it. But I remember Terry, our CEO, was a little nervous about that, which I thought was pretty funny. And, you know, I assume we're going to edit this, but Terry, we need to talk about him.
No edit. There was a lot of people on the crew that I interviewed. I interviewed like 7 people, and I remember Leslie was on there, and she made me cry. Like, 5 minutes. I mean, it was good tears, but like, she was like, say more about your relationship with marijuana. And then I did. Like, and it was a big part of like me coming away from it and my healing. But then she like fed it back to me, and she was like, it really seems like you had a love affair with her and with cannabis and what she represented and did. I totally did. And she was there when I needed her, but then it was horrible, and she started keying my car and throwing away my clothes. So I had to get rid of her. And like, it was, sorry. I assume there's a lot of shifts and growth, but y'all's heart was at the forefront of it. So I remember, even though there was this larger organization with other people, I constantly had direct supervision from Willow, was on calls regularly. And then Dave, you were always coming into town. Even though you were in Colorado, you were coming into Atlanta, helping the team shape there. So you guys were an integral part to me you were always there. It wasn't like you were detached from it.
Yeah. Thank you. That I appreciate. That's always been important to us.
Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out how to phrase sort of the mutual growth, but it wasn't just this sort of one way training kind of energy. It was like we were learning together. And so I look at it like you were very much part of the big picture growth and where we are now. You're just part of the fabric, as is Rohini, who you mentioned. I mean, we don't have to be working together to have just this sort of like interconnected mission that we just do in our own way. But I think about the growth and just supervising you and like learning a lot from you as well, and hoping that I continue to do that with everybody I learn from. But I just want you to know that because you're so really good at expressing your gratitude towards us. And I'm like, am I able to do that? Reciprocate that? It's kind of hard to put in words, but I really feel it every time we speak or get to see each other.
Awesome. And Willow, I definitely feel it. I mean, you guys have been so supportive, and I remember, it's very reciprocal, and it feels like my voice was there. You guys gave me a voice along the way to grow, but then still kind of work collaboratively, which was beautiful.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Willow. We're not probably as eloquent in speaking about that, but I would tell you that when we left, we were there last time and we left anti-psychiatry, which I'm sorry that closed, by the way.
It closed? What?
But when we left there, I mean, Willow and I were just, I was teary. I was so happy to see what you with Zach have created. I mean, our hearts were so warm. It was fucking awesome. And I was just like, Willow, what are we going to do? We have to make sure that Wes keeps doing that. We have to keep him feeling good. He can't not stop.
Yeah.
Will's like, Dave, okay.
Good. He's good.
It's the best thing ever to hear that.
Well, and I also would share Zach, and then we can move on from the Love Fest, but I'm grateful for you to be there and a lot of reasons, but I feel like without you there, this doesn't happen over there. Like you guys are just yin yang perfect, and it's a good setup. So,
for sure. Yeah.
And lastly, I just want to say, in case this amazing podcast goes viral, in between Vive and Wonder, I did go to Key Transitions and to help them get that running. And it was perfect for me because I needed a break. It was great to help those guys, but the calling came for Willow and I after a year, like, we got to do this again, but grateful for that opportunity.
Man, you guys are awesome. And to your point, I mean, I think, I got to thank Zach. I got to thank you too, brother, because you've been an enormous part of us working in conjunction. I wish you guys could be behind the scenes and hear how we joke.
I can picture it.
Yeah, we got a good rhythm to where we can communicate anything we need to one another.
Yeah.
But you guys were there every step of the way. I remember you reached out early on, Dave, and saw the bio videos we put up, and you were like, yo, what you guys are doing is phenomenal. Yeah. And just know, I view all this as collaborative community growth. We want to support Team Wonder because you guys do things that we never could. And we feel like that's super important. And that's a missing piece of the puzzle, and mental health and holistic care is kind of working as a village. So it's like, even right now, we got a family that's going to come on board, has worked with us for a while, but the young girls aren't resonating as much as they could be. And I think the in-home work is where it needs to be. And so you guys are going to come on board and work with them. But like, it's just awesome. That day that you guys came out and saw the brick and mortar and met some of the team and went over to AP was the same type of thing. You guys left and I was just like, God, my life is a dream. I never even imagined being able to show them this and what we've done. And you have my word that radical youth work and holistic family work, I'll devote the rest of my life to it and kind of grow it where it needs to collaboratively. And I have you guys to thank so much for still being here and being supportive, not just planting seeds and then not being around, but still being part of the collaborative growth of it. It's awesome. See, I did it without crying.
That's pretty good, man.
Me too.
That's real growth, man.
Is that Bill Murray on your chest, by the way?
Listen to this. This was $3 at a thrift store. And it's who do you think it is?
It looks like Bill Murray, but it's not, is it?
It's Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, nice.
With his shirt off with a shotgun, and it just says read. And Dave, I saw it and I was like, yes.
Oh yeah, you gotta have this.
I'm buying that.
Great. Okay, but that's
I can tell Zach's gonna get us right on track right now.
That's y'all.
Go.
Y'all done. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's beautiful. No, it's not really like we try not to have too much of a format, but you guys, you said that, like, again, key transitions was awesome, but the pull back to doing your own thing was like that was a strong pull. But your main like type of your business model is like in home, like you guys don't operate out of a building. You'll have the teams in each one of the 7 cities. What made you go with that business model? I'm curious because I know you said you saw a gap in the support available to youth coming home from wilderness and residential programs, and so you guys chose to set it up to where you go in home. So like, tell me a little bit about that and why you guys chose to go that way.
Well, I can say from the clinical side, I've never even considered it any other way, just from my practice and from my experience. So from the minute I started doing the work, I took a kid outside and we started playing basketball, and I was like, I was an intern. I'm like, oh yeah, it resonated with my whole body. So there would be I wouldn't even know what to do in a building, frankly. In terms of like engagement, and there's times where kids need a little bit more containment. We figure that out. But in general, there's that, but then there's just being in somebody's home, seeing how they interact with their dog, or, distractions, or being able to see the pictures they choose, or, everything is just a whole different systemic support that just totally makes sense to us. I don't even think there's a business model part of it, but it's like that kind of follows the clinical piece of it. Like that once we figured out the clinical piece of it, we had to be like, okay, how do we do this from the business perspective?
Right. Okay.
And I just add to that, because I call it in-home too, Zach, but that's a little misleading. It's really in-home, in community. We're not just in the home, but we're outside an office in the real world. Some of that's happening in the house, but it's also just being out in the real world. And some of that goes back to our early days, when kids were really doing a lot of work. They were going into the therapy room with a therapist doing talk therapy, and either that wasn't translating out into the real world. Like, there's great talks happening, but I still haven't got a job. I still haven't done these things. Or there were times where I had literally had kids from being a high school teacher telling me, yeah, I do family therapy, but I literally just nod my head so that everyone gets off my back. Because the one time I did get authentic, everyone ganged up on me.
Yeah.
Being simplistic. But those were some motivations for us to be like, let's get out in the real world, and let's make sure the kids have their own person, their own clinician, their own coach. Parents can have a separate coach so that they feel supported and not ganged up.
Man, you guys are you're bringing me down memory lane. And they brought me on, Zach, as a therapeutic mentor.
Yeah.
Early on, and Dave's spot on. It was like, it was anything you needed to do to build relationship with the young person in an authentic way where they felt your heart and you could show up and support. And Dave was great about that. He, even in the interview process, he was like, I'm gonna give you a couple scenarios and walk you through, if a kid were to do this, all of a sudden the report's good, you guys are cruising, you're talking, and then he just falls off and you can't get a hold of him. He's not texting you back. What do you do? And when I was interviewing, dude, I was like, I would do whatever the organization and policy have me do. And Dave was like, quit. What are you doing? Don't do that shit. Like, answer from your heart. What would you do to reconnect with this kid? And I was like, I'd probably just go over to the house, man. And he was like, yes. Okay, cool. And I remember 2 kids real quick. I'll say one lived, super cool kid, and he loved basketball. That's all he wanted to do, but he was beefing with his mom, grades, school, different stuff. But I went in home and they had cats, and there was like probably 6 litter boxes, and the cats were like going outside of the litter box. And he was like, dude, my mom's on my back and I can't go play basketball until I clean up these litter boxes. And I was like, dude, let's do it all right now. Let's just run it. Let's clean all the litter boxes and then we'll go play basketball. And he was like, you'd help me do that? And I was like, yes, let's run it. We got it. We cleaned all the litter boxes, and then we went to the local community center and played basketball. And so that's a good example of like that in-home and collaborative out in the community. And then I remember there was several young kids that wouldn't leave their house. And so what do you do in those times when they won't go to any therapist? They won't come out to a facility. Yeah. We could, therapeutic mentors could go in home and show up and build enough relationship to get the kid comfortable enough to start taking baby steps and going outside of the home and doing more in the community. It was awesome.
Yeah, that story, I love that story.
Yeah.
I never have heard that one. But I would also say, and this is where like you two probably balance each other out. Will and I are good balance too. But back in the day before Willow came on board, I was like, kid's not showing up, I'm going to show up at his house. Or he's in a fucking crack den, I'm just going to show up. Willow came in like, it's okay if you show up, but you just don't go show up without telling your supervisor. We need to know you're showing up. We need to make sure this is safe. We need to have a little bit of structure. I'm not going to tell you can't go, but you just don't go without telling anybody because it may not be safe. Yeah. So we just added a little more structure behind it, but not enough to, would you say, Willow, am I saying that correctly? But we're still doing the work,
That was one of my first experiences, because how you guys are explaining it and how Wes was trained, and he was with you for so long, and you went straight from Vive to private practice, didn't you, Wes?
Yes, I called Willow and I burst into tears and I was like, I can't do the PhD and do Vive at the same time. I got it. And she was like, chill out. And so, yeah, right into private practice.
And then when we linked back up, we started working together, and he was supervising me as a therapeutic mentor. One of the first interactions I had with a client was I went to their house. Like Wes called me up. He's like, yo, you got to go to this kid's house. I was like, what? And I was super nervous, and I was like, what do you mean I got to go to his house? Like, his parents are going to be there. Like, what am I supposed to do? And he's like, man, just go show up. And I showed up, and you're right. There is something about that home element. And, I went to his room, saw how his room was set up in his like own space. He let me into his space, showed me his art. And then we hung out there for a little bit, showed me around his house. And then we went and grabbed breakfast and had breakfast for like 2 hours, and it was awesome. And the kid is still at the center right now. And I know Wes worked with him previously, but yeah, he's still with us. So there's something about that approach that's it's very special. But I remember that was my first experience, man. And then I started to do that a lot before the center opened. And I was always super nervous, and I still get nervous, especially if I have to, I don't know.
Yeah, man.
Something about that dynamic where there's just like a lot of humility and respect behind it too. So, but it's a cool approach.
Yeah, we agree.
Wes, this is the most quiet I've heard you on a podcast.
Well, I'm just I know I'll monopolize the whole thing. That's all I'm thinking in my head is I'll just start rambling and talking, but I really want to highlight Team Wonder and Willow and Dave, and where I'd love to hear from you guys what the main focus is right now and a little bit about each region. And so I think, we could start with Atlanta. We met a good chunk of your Atlanta team, and each region is comprised of parent coaches, a team leader, and some therapeutic mentors, but they have different credentialing, and most are master's level and either seeking licensure or have licensure. But I'd love anything you guys kind of want to talk about that can give us an insider's glimpse into the current pulse of Team Wonder and where you guys are kind of highlighting and focused on.
Go for it, Willow.
Well, I'm going to let you kind of go over the regions and maybe growth in that way. I think one of the things that we're really excited about is just our ability to continue to move to supporting the parents in a way that we're kind of mirroring how we support the kids. We're so passionate about that relationship with kids and being creative and being able to come from a really not shame-based place that with parents, they come to us in a very different energy, defended, like with a lot of expectations about progress and behavior change. And, they've been through a lot typically in terms of information. So just that idea that we create that authentic relationship with parents too, and we give that compassion and that understanding of their own personal history and just hold the space while holding, I know this is so therapist-y, but also holding the boundary in a way that kind of protects the kids' relationships with their coach is like, it's some fancy footwork, but it's so awesome to see the people who are drawn to us and want to do the work in this way that, like that story about the kitty litter. First of all, I'm like, oh my God, I probably would have run the other way. And it's like my worst nightmare. I can't, I must have blocked that out in my memory of our supervision, or I've been like, you don't have to do that. I'm sure I said you didn't have to do that. But I think in terms of the people who just resonate with the work and we're just drawing people in and letting them do their thing it's just awesome. And again, just thinking about Wes, when you joined us and being able to say, your instincts are exactly as they need to be. Perhaps I might have some concerns about, skydiving or doing any sort of gun activity. However, we can talk about it. Let's be open, but it just keeps growing and growing like that. I have total confidence in terms of the people who join us and do the work. And like that's kind of where Dave and I are. I think, not to speak for you, Dave, but we're sort of in this like, all right, to your point, we've planted a lot of seeds with the people that we've hired across the country. And now they're just, I think, really just coming into really embodying the model and just understanding that we are here to create relationship with the kids, create relationship with the parents, do family work, and, do the experiential work, which is exactly that. I mean, I love how people try to define experiential as like kind of one thing. It's literally called experiential. Mm-hmm. So yeah. The point is it's the attitude of being experiential. What does this particular kid need and how do I get the creativity to get them there versus, well, I have this experiential activity that works really well and I read it in this book and it's labeled experiential, so we do it. That's not kind of not how it works with us.
And that's so beautifully said, Willow.
The experiential piece. Yeah.
Zach and I are thinking about the same thing. You watch people define experiential as if it's this concrete black or white new type of counseling methodology, whereas like the beauty of true experiential humanistic work is at the heart of that kid, tuning into that kid and what experiences do they need to engage in to offer therapeutic healing to them. And that could be anything, but it's like, you're not just going, we're doing board games and it's board game therapy, or we're doing this and it's this. It's like the whole time it's, man, what's going to resonate with this kid's heart and how are we going to get that to open up? And that is such a delicate dance to do. But I've watched, and man, I just got to shout out to y'all's team. Because you guys do a beautiful job of supporting that essence with everybody on your team. And I can think about everybody that I worked with in the past and how that was at the heart of their work. And these are like, even now when people will ask me for counseling or therapy referrals in other states, if they ever hit one of your regions, I send them your region, even if it's somebody looking for a private practice clinician, because I know you guys have found the best of the best, top tier clinicians, experiential counselors and youth workers in that region. They gravitate. And I know, man, if they're working for Team Wonder, then they're really good. Like somebody needed a referral the other day of a private practice clinician in Colorado. And I was like, boom, let me just go on to Team Wonder's region, look at everybody, and then send a couple of those people's Psychology Today profile. And I know if Wonder's vetted them and they're doing work at Wonder, then they know some of the top tier therapists in the field in that region.
That is exactly it. The community collaboration and growth, like in every city that we're in is, first of all, that's never ending. Like there's no like kind of ending point of, oh, good, we've collaborated and have enough relationship. Like that's always going to be our goal. But it takes some time. Like I'm just, 20 years in and I still feel like, okay, we're starting to get our community roots, down in some of these cities. So it's just always going to be a passion of, I think, both Dave and I.
Yeah. Was I skydiving with guns?
You,
at the same time?
You definitely went skydiving.
Yes,
And I was like so concerned. Somehow you convinced me that all the releases were signed and, I was like, okay. And then you did want to take a kid out, I think. Maybe it was archery.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
There was some sort of, higher risk activity, just white knuckled it through. So we made it.
We had a kid in Colorado, and we had a mentor, Coach Stewart, and his kid wanted to go skydiving, right? And Stewart, we talked about it and got the okay from Willow, but this is kind of cool. They went up into the plane, and Stewart looked at his kid and like, I care about you. I'm here. Oh no. Before Stewart went in the plane, he kind of sat, was like, there's no way I'm going off. I'm not jumping. I'm way too scared. But instead, what he did was, which was cool, is he told the kid, look, man, I am so supportive of you doing this, and I will be in that plane so that you can jump, but I need you to know I'm not doing it. It's way too scary for me. So he showed his vulnerability.
Cool.
But he's like, I'm still go up there and I'm going to be there when you jump. And
cool.
It was you know what I mean? So there's no black and white. You have to play in the gray, but it didn't mean he had to jump too, but he had to show up. Right.
Yeah.
And that's how he showed up. And man, they were bonded for years after that.
That's so beautiful. It's so, and what a way to model, man. I can remember, and I think I told you guys this story, but same type of thing happened to me when I was a therapeutic mentor, where I was mountain biking with this one young guy, and we had a couple shoddy bikes, and mine just started to like dissolve, like on the trail, like the brakes weren't working and the gears got stuck. And I was like, dude, this sucks. And he completely turned into my mentor. Yeah. He was like, Wes, remember everything you told me, man? We can turn this into an awesome situation. It doesn't have to suck. We'll just look at the workout we're getting. We can throw them on our shoulder and walk the bikes. We'll figure it out. And I had this moment as I was walking with this kid, like super emotional. I was like, oh my God, he's spitting back to me all of the coaching and encouragement I've ever given him. And he's helping give it to me in a time that I needed it. And so like it's so beautiful, man, the way that we learn from the youth and how they teach us. And it's Dave, it's what you said, just show up. Don't, and you know what to do. That's a heart thing. That's not a head thing.
That's right. I love it.
Awesome.
Only when Wes taught me this, because I was getting frustrated in my early days. It's not like I haven't been doing this for too long, a couple of years, but right when I first started, it was, I had a challenge of like always showing up I wanted to achieve something during the session. Like I wanted something to happen or get something out of it. Like, tell me what you've learned after this hour, the deal, but it's not the way it worked, man. And it was challenging to actually just be in the space of just showing up and supporting, and however that looks. That's true experiential therapy, is just however it looks, be in that space with that kid. But no, don't go in with an agenda or a to-do list. That's no good.
That's well said.
I was just going to say, I love that you said that, because I've just had that conversation with a lot of supervisors with the people who are just starting to do this, where yeah, how do I know that I'm actually doing a good job? And it's all because you care. It's not because of any other reason than that, but I'm just hearing it a lot. Like, how do I know that that was a productive session or that we're actually getting somewhere? And, I just love that opportunity to say, oh, yeah, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
I remember Willow calling you a couple times and being like, I didn't fucking do anything. I just walked on the beach for 2 hours. We went and bought a yo-yo from Hobby Lobby and we watched clips of Family Guy. I didn't do anything. I didn't help. How did I help? But then you start to see the unfolding of the relational and how when there is a time of vulnerability where they need you, they reach because of those moments that you shared that weren't agenda based, that weren't focused on, we have to talk about your anxiety right now. We have to talk about your self-harm or your suicide attempt or your drug use. It's like, man, that's the furthest way to get a kid to move away from you, is to tackle it head on. But if you allow it to arise organically, then they'll bring it up. They'll bring it to you because they truly, honestly want to know what you think around it. And it's a safe space, and you've made it a safe space because of the multitude of hours of relational work you've done. But yeah, it's drastically different from behavioral focused therapy, which I won't knock. It's just, it's different with youth,
I'm sure I said to you at that point, did that kid hang out with you that whole time? Did that kid walk on the beach with you, go to Hobby Lobby, and then, end the session? That's a huge win, because it really is significant if you think about it. To have your kid be like, I'm going to hang out with this guy. I'm going to go to Hobby Lobby.
Yeah.
And you're right. And as a young clinician, you come in strong with this ideal of like, I'm only going to have a good therapy session if I get them to cathartically process and talk about it head on. And it's like, you got to let that go. You almost got to untrain yourself as to what success is, as to what growth is, as to what healing is. And it's, it's relational. And so much of that is unspoken and is felt. But it's beautiful because you guys have led that for so long and your whole team resonates with that. I felt that with the Atlanta team. Like, we talked to a lot of places and they kind of get what we do, but then they bring in a lot of, well, how do you measure success? And what does this look like in this? And like your Atlanta team, that's not the conversation we had. It was like, yo, that's badass. And you guys can do this and do that. And we were on the same frequency and wavelength.
Oh, you guys are funny.
So what else, man?
Yeah, what else?
Anything else that you guys feel like Zach and I, we're focused on disrupting the industry and doing radical youth work and doing work in a way that really gives the kids voice and lets them kind of wave the eternal strength flag and feel proud about the therapeutic growth work that they're doing. So we've been asking a lot of people, like, as you look to the future of the mental health industry, of growth, of therapeutic work, where do you guys kind of see your focus with Team Wonder and the work that you're doing to continue to disrupt the industry in your own way? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Essay form.
What did you say?
I said in essay form. I don't know.
I'd love to just hear it, because I think what you guys, I don't know of any other programs that are doing the in-home and community-based relationally the way you are. I know of a lot of state-funded social work type programs that do, what do they call it, EFI? In something, but it's in-home based stuff, but it's heavy behavioral.
Oh yeah.
And so I think you guys are so rogue and different in what you're doing. I'm just curious about, last time we talked, Willow, you were talking about implementation of like Wonderland and expansion of a few different kind of things as you guys were growing. And so maybe if you can just define those and then talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think the reason why maybe we're not like just jumping on it is that our energy is very much about focusing on what we have and organic growth, and it's very hard. I don't think Dave and I are great about saying, we're going to disrupt an industry, or our language is a little bit more like, I just want to be accountable to the work we're doing every single day, and that has a natural growth pattern to it, and I trust that. I was just saying this on our kind of end of the year, beginning of the year, stating our intentions, which is there is an organic growth that is happening that I totally trust. And so it's hard for me to say it's going to look like this, because I am actually kind of trusting that process. But as Dave has mentioned too, we need grounding around how to do that. And so in order for us to be accountable for the quality of care that we're doing is just being in heavy relationship with each team and each team leader that exists right now. And then we sort of build around people. So when we find somebody that wants to move, that totally gets the model, sometimes that'll inspire us to open a team or start a team in a different city. So we're not doing and I know this isn't going to surprise you, we're not doing like a lot of heavy market research about when's the next place that we should open. We're sort of like, what's coming forward with a place like Dallas that is smaller, that could use a little, I think, activity from us, or, a little attention. And does that make sense? So it's like kind of, it's actually probably not that sexy and exciting. It's just like,
Well, Willow, it's so needed. Like, God, to hear you say that, it makes so much sense. And I feel like Zach and I can learn from y'all, and we already have, because if you haven't already figured out, our energy is a little bit different. It is sexy and it's crazy. Yeah. We're like, we're gonna do it all. A million didgeridoos. What's the scene from what's Walk Hard with John C. Reilly? Remember when he goes in the big acid phase and he's recording the album, it's taking him 10 years, and he's like, I need a million didgeridoos. But like, Zach and I dream like crazy. We're like, it's revolutionary psychotherapy, it's radical youth work, it's mental health revolt, it's fight the system. But to hear you, Willow, say, I can't answer what the future holds. What I can tell you is where our intentional focus is right now is to the accountability of our teams, our organic growth, listening to the families that we serve, and doing it in a way where our growth doesn't get ahead of us, and the quality of holistic care that we bring to our families and youth. That's like, it makes me want to be a little less sexy.
That's way cooler than how we would say it.
Be like, actually, Zach and I do that too. Yeah, we totally do that.
We're like, yeah, all we say is we just say the F word a lot. You know what I mean? It's just really like, it makes it sound serious and honest. We're gonna fucking disrupt the industry, man. You're like, how? We're like, I don't know.
We'd be lost without you guys.
It's all
maybe
great,
we should market, Zach. I just had an idea, man. Idea train. We should be the Bill and Ted of mental health therapeutic treatment.
I don't like that duo. Can we pick another duo?
Listen, Zach's Excellent Adventure.
There is. He just like he's had a man crush on Keanu Reeves for years.
Oh, love that guy.
He deserves it.
Listen to his response. Oh, that Keanu.
Willow, do you remember it was Keanu Reeves and he was in Paula Abdul's video? Music.
And listen to this guy.
Forever Your Girl?
It was the one where it's Rush.
Oh, yes. Rush. Nice.
And Keanu Reeves in that, and he takes out a can of milk, like a glass of milk, and he rubs it on his face. When I was like 14, I was like, if I could cut my hair like him, look like him, wear those jeans, I could be, I've never wanted to be somebody more other than Adam Duritz from Counting Crows, who I really wanted to be. So
he's really stood the test of time, and he's really turned out to be a real
nice. He is a badass. He's like a super nice, humble dude who gives away all of his money.
Exactly.
All his money.
It's just funny to hear Wes. Being when we were friends around that time, to know that he wanted to be Keanu Reeves is like
He didn't share that with you?
that visual, man, and the
It was
fact that he
vulnerable.
knows that.
Exactly, because you didn't carve space for me to be able to share it. It was a very vulnerable moment.
It's your fault, Zach.
Oh my God. Guys, y'all are awesome. I don't want to keep you too long. I know we can stop recording, keep chatting. That'd be cool if you guys got time, but I don't want to run this on too long. But I don't know if you guys want to, if you want to know more about Willow and Dave, you go to teamwonder.org.
That's correct.
I always get nervous when I say information. I'm questioning myself every time I say something. I'm like, is that right? Oh shit.
That's right.
Anyways,
And we'll put up all those links. You'll be able to go, but then when you go there, it's got to drop down for the regions, and you can go into every single region that Team Wonder has, and you can read about their team and the bios.
Yeah. Awesome. If you go to their website, you'll see all that.
But when you go to the website,
and there's this like header at the top, and there's a menu, and you click it, and you can see their team. It's
a really advanced website.
Yeah. And there's pictures of Dave on there. I mean, do you guys have any final things to say, or any kind of shout outs you wanna, or anything?
No, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You guys are awesome.
Rock and roll.
Hey y'all, this is Wes. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio. Head on over to eternalstrengthatl.com, and don't forget to check out cosmiclamb.org, our 501c3 nonprofit, where you can make a donation and help us fulfill the mission of bringing radical youth work to any and all families in need.